Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I am Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man. And as per usual, we are the devil, apparently. And by we, I mean MRAs. Those of
I guess
us
in this,
who don't buckle at the nearest mention of the woman card are verboten.
I guess in this case, it would be more accurate to call us the villain, considering the character we're talking about.
Yes, we are the draconic turtle creature, apparently.
Yeah. So we have this article here from That Park Place, written by Marvin Montanero. Grace Randolph claims Bowser represents the toxic manosphere in Super Mario Galaxy. Now, I'm not sure who Grace Randolph is. Do you know?
I know who she is. You might know her better by her channel name, which is Beyond the Trailer.
I believe I've seen it, yes, but I don't think I'm subscribed to it.
When she's not, um, when she's not letting the upper middle class journalist white woman in her speak for her, I have a soft spot for her, and it should go without saying that those things, especially when taken together, i- they give you a -10 to your int score and a -15 to your wisdom and perception checks. So therein lies the problem. Upper middle class, relatively pretty white woman in the journalism field in New York in 2026.
Such as the Hollywood Access Media is that is again, when are they ever not? And this time they've managed to turn a fire breathing cartoon turtle into a symbol of modern political discourse. I mean, they've done that with literally every single property they could get their hands on. Like even things that
I
should like
mean, veterans of
yeah.
Gamergate and Comicsgate and the Fandom Menace, say it with me. Is this your first time? Because those of us who have been around a while, this I my opening ironic salvo was going to maybe be the new hit piece just dropped, but the other one was slightly more amusing, so I went with that one instead.
But for example, have you seen the new Daredevil show? Daredevil, I think it's called Born Again season 2.
I have seen season one. I have not seen season two yet.
It, like it is so ham-fisted that the Kingpin is a Trump allegory that it's just frankly disgusting to watch.
Yeah, to be fair, they started laying the groundwork for that back when Netflix was in charge of the thing, so I'm not surprised that Disney in the current year is even worse in that regard.
Yeah, I watched one episode and I have no interest in seeing more, which is a shame because I really like the original Daredevil show. Even though, as you mentioned, they did start peppering in the political allegories in the later
I,
seasons.
I liked what I saw of original Netflix Daredevil, and I didn't think season one of Born Again was all that bad. Um,
It wasn't all that bad, but you could definitely see like there was a lot of anti-cop rhetoric where it was just
yeah, a lot of a cabbing going on there.
yeah.
I don't know if I'm becoming more desensitized to it or if they are becoming progressively more subtle about it. Because, I mean, having already survived She Hulk and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm willing to accept a little bit of it just so long as it doesn't completely derail the plot and character. So, again, I don't know where my desensitization to it ends and them becoming more subtle begins, but eh.
Let's see. In her review of the Super Mario Galaxy movie, Grace Randolph delivered what can only be described as a head scratching take, claiming that Bowser somehow reflects what she calls the toxic manosphere. I have not seen the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Uh, I mean, I like the Mario franchise well enough, but this is more of a kind of movie that I would only see if I was going to take my niece to see it.
I've seen the movie, and I've also seen the review that this article is alluding to. I don't find it particularly head scratching, but that's partly because I have that knack for looking into the heart of the madness and finding ways to make it make sense. Um, we will get into it as we go because I don't want to peak too early. But it it makes sense from what I know of Grace. Although I say that again, acknowledging that I have a knack for looking into the heart of the abyss and making some kind of order out of it.
Let's see. And if you thought critics learned anything after wildly missing the mark on the Super Mario Brothers movie, think again. Now we have this video. Um, I'm not gonna watch it just in case we might get copyrighted.
Yeah, I think it's just a link to her original review. I think.
You have some quotes here. I continue to feel that Bowser and now Bowser Jr. are a little bit too actually evil. She said, like, it goes beyond cartoon villain. I think maybe because they're kind of mimic like the Toxic Manosphere. I see a lot of similar talking points there. What talking points would you be alluding to?
Okay, so this is the part where I'm going to try to put A and B together and get something orderly out of it. I think what she is referring to is in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, there are two moments. The first moment is a flashback to um, Bowser being a good dad to Bowser Jr. and spending time with him. But because he is a villain, part of that includes basically it is morally right that we dominate everything and rule over everyone rhetoric. And the second thing is later on in the movie, um, when Bowser Jr. rescues Bowser from being captured by the Mushroom Kingdom because he was defeated at the end of the last movie. Um, he Bowser goes through most of the movie, and this is the movie just not being very good. And I will agree with her on this to some degree in that um, the movie spends like 50% of its runtime with Bowser bonding with the Mario Brothers and becoming a better person. And then his son essentially, when Bowser tries to convince him to spare his friends, his son responds with "friends are cringe." Essentially, I'm obviously oversimplifying. And Bowser backtracks immediately. And I'm not even necessarily opposed to him backtracking. Um, but the issue is like they were genuinely seemingly trying to give him a redemption. Villain becomes sympathetic to the hero's arc, and then they backtracked on it entirely. But point being, I think what Grace's point is, having watched the video and watched the movie that she's referring to, I think what her point is Bowser trying to inculcate like um imperialism into Bowser Jr. reads to her as patriarchal entitlement and possibly even colonialism. And that is the thing she's associating with the manosphere, especially when tethered to friends and emotional relationships are cringe, which she associates with people like Andrew Tate. I think that's what she's going for. That's how she's getting from there to there. Still doesn't make any sense and has nothing to do with the actual manosphere, but it has to do with her conception of the manosphere, I'm guessing. Because she's an
A desire,
intersectional feminist type and I'm used to their reinterpretations of our shit at this
a,
point.
des- a desire to dominate others isn't a trait that's exclusively to men. Like I've seen some incredibly toxic female bosses that were essentially just use their positions to rule like petty tyrants, and I mean
Yeah,
emphasis
it's
on the petty there.
the main difference between male dominance generally and female dominance generally is men do it with hierarchy and force or a combination thereof, and women do it with moral and social posturing and what's known as relational aggression. They weaponize the abstract to leverage moral purity rather than competency.
And
Now,
manipulation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The mean girl style relational aggression of whoever is at the top of the social and moral pecking order, it gets to demonize and degrade anyone beneath them thing is more of a it's more of a classically female thing than it is a classically male thing to do. Whereas men, as the cliche goes, two men can frequently get in a fist fight and then immediately continue to be friends afterwards, or at least come to a case of being able to respect each other afterwards. Whereas women, they double and triple and quadruple down on that moral pecking order, and the moral pecking order never goes away.
Yeah, and like it's a cartoon villain. It's supposed to be ridiculously evil and to not make like logical real world sense in its
She
thinking.
she addresses that. The issue she has is she would prefer a Draken or Dr. Doofenshmirtz style incompetent villain, a villain whose evil is so over the top and cartoonish that they basically sabotage themselves. And Bowser is basically portrayed as competent.
Yes, but
And go ahead.
all the best villains that people actually, take seriously and look on as genuinely great characters are the ones that are at the really least competent to some degree. Like nobody would still be talking about Thanos after Infinity War and Endgame if he had just fumbled the whole thing.
Yeah, but her argument is Mario is supposed to be more cartoony, and therefore the only way you can do a cartoonish villain is by making them self-destructively incompetent.
That makes no sense. Ganondorf is a video game character from the same company as Mario, and nobody would like him if he was an incompetent villain.
You're right, but she's not a Nintendo fan. She's looking at this from the perspective of a vaguely pop culture savvy journalist in the way that that means in 2026. And to her, if you want me to like a villain, you either have to make them sympathetic or you have to make them incompetent and self-destructively evil, preferably a little bit of both. Seems to be her standard of what acceptable villainy is.
All right, I'm just gonna say no one should listen to this woman in regards to her opinion about the Mario movie. This movie was made for kids and Nintendo fans, and since she is neither, she should honestly just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and this Bowser is too actually evil to be a good cartoon villain is something that she said um, in her review of the first movie as well. That's why when we read the quote there, she said, "I continue to feel," because this is apparently a thing that she feels doubled down on one of her criticisms of the first movie.
And honestly, here's the thing: Bowser has to be a competent villain in order for the Mario Brothers to be heroes. Because if he's an incompetent villain who's going to fail on his own anyway, then there's no need for them to do anything, and therefore there's no point to even there
But
even being
that's
a
what she
game.
wants. She wants the self-aware absurdity thing. She basically wants them to Marvel/Joss Whedon their way through any pretensions of seriousness.
Let's continue with the article. Maybe I'll get a better sense of what the hell she's trying to say as it goes on.
maybe.
says Bowser, voiced once again by Jack Black, is a decades-old villain whose entire identity boils down to kidnapping Princess Peach, getting defeated, and tractor. I mean, other games do add a bit more nuances, but that's generally how it goes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yet somehow Randolph manages to draw a straight line from that to modern online discourse about masculinity. It's that kind of reach that makes even Stretch Armstrong bless. Stretch Armstrong is a deep cut I have not heard in a while.
Yeah, I proposed my theory as to how she got from there to there. Like I said, I think she thinks of Bowser teaching Bowser Jr. That conquering and dominance is based, um, is him indoctrinating his son into patriarchal entitlement slash colonialism, and that Bowser Jr. in turn basically saying friends are cringe is mirroring the Andrew Tate style incel mindset, according to the way the intersectional feminists view it. There are several layers of refraction here. It's terminally refracted, not to mention another word that begins with R and ends with D. But that's, that's by the by. But yeah, I think that's what she's getting at, or at least that's how she got from there to there. She didn't really elaborate much on her reasoning, but what little elaboration she did do, and my pre-established understanding of the way she thinks, makes me think that that's where she's going with that.
I can't stand these people. They're absolutely incapable of letting people simply enjoy things even if they don't like them. If they don't like something, they have to make it the entire internet's
Yeah,
problem.
they have to morally and politically purify the thing until it meets with their standards. And then they will stare agog as the thing that they morally purified crashes and burns and will never make the connection between what they tried to do and the things that happened. Uh, moving on.
This isn't an isolated incident. Randolph also famously criticized the Super Mario Bros. Movie when it debuted in 2023. Despite audiences overwhelmingly embracing it, critics at the time handed the film a lukewarm reception, while general audiences propelled it to massive box office success and glowing audience scores. The divide couldn't have been clearer. And that's the thing. Like, it is very clear that critics in 2026 just their opinion doesn't matter. Like, no one should take their opinions into account when deciding whether or not they should see a movie.
Yeah, it's the post Frankfurt School neo Hegelian takeover of the art school problem. If all you care about is my metaphors and my allegories and my themes and my sociopolitics and my morality, and everything else about art is either null or a problem for you, then you can go fuck yourselves. And unfortunately, that is what they teach in fucking art schools and film schools now. They teach nothing about the in-universe logic, nothing about the aesthetic, nothing about the continuity, nothing about the world building. None of that either has to make sense or should even make sense. It's all a means to a socio-political, moral, and thematic end. And God's how I hate it and how it ruins everything it fucking touches.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like it's not a matter of simply people having a different opinion from their own. It's almost as if they're afraid that if people have a different opinion than their own, then there's a chance that their opinion might not just be different but be wrong, and that is something they're unwilling to accept. So they have to badger everyone else about how their opinion is actually the right one,
Well,
and they're all bad and wrong for disagreeing.
it's worse than that. It's the self-refuting nature of the term media literacy at this point. The term media literacy, both implicitly and explicitly, basically says there is one correct lens through which to view art, and it's the instrumentalizing, non-diegetic, thematic, sociopolitical, and moral one. And if you care about things like continuity, in universe logic, three dimensional characterization, explicable motivation, etc., you are not just stupid and bad and wrong, but you are a toxic fan who misses the point of art entirely, because according to them there is only one true point of art. And if you're not with the media literacy, then you are media illiterate. You can either instrumentalize every piece of art you see for themes, moral, socio-political gobbledygook, and layers of secondary meaning, or you're a toxic fan who's too stupid to realize that in-universe logic, consistent characterization, three-dimensional world building, likable and enjoyable aesthetics and things don't matter and make you a child, basically.
And the thing is, like, even when, like, there are underlying, like, themes and such to a piece that
Themes are
could be
secondary
translated on
to, yeah.
that could be translated onto things like politics and society. They always get it wrong. Like, these are the people who would say that we should invite the orcs into the Shire.
Because not only is there only one way you can interpret art via the socio-political, moral, and thematic lenses, and the authorial intent and derp, there's also only one kind of those intents that is valid, namely the one that tethers itself to social justice and intersectionality and derp.
Now let's scroll down a bit.
Yep.
So now we're seeing the same script play out again with the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Instead of focusing on what the film actually delivers, colorful world building, fan service, and classic Nintendo charm, Randolph zeroes in on ideological interpretations that simply don't exist in the text, turning Mario into a political battlefield. The biggest issue here isn't just a bad take, it's what it represents. The Nintendo brand has largely avoided the pitfalls that have plagued modern Hollywood franchises, with a few notable exceptions. Nintendo has its own problems, but that's for a different video. No
Yeah.
heavy-handed
Their their
messaging.
their 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 problems are not, for the moment at least, the social justice brats are trying, but for the moment at least, Nintendo's problems are not Hollywood's problems.
Yeah, no heavy-handed messaging, no agenda-driven storytelling, just fun, accessible entertainment. That's exactly why audiences show up. So when critics attempt to inject real-world political frameworks into something like Bowser, a literal dragon turtle warlord from a fantasy universe, it feels less like analysis and more like projection. It is exactly projection. Like, there's literally no other way around it.
Don't get me wrong. I think she genuinely means it. The issue is, I've mentioned the phrase framework blind many times before, and this is an example of it. They literally do not see their ideological framework as an ideological framework. They think it is the singular and only verifiable truth. So if you disagree with with what they think of as the singular truth, you are either stupid, evil, or both, according to
So
them.
a good metaphor would be like if they're wearing glasses with like hidden script etched into the lenses, and they put the glasses on and see, oh my god, there's hidden script written all over everything.
Yeah.
But really,
And
it's
when you try to tell them that there is no hidden script, that it is their own, they assume that you need a prescription for the same glasses they have, because that's the only way it's possible for a person to see properly.
yeah, exactly. Instead of just taking the glasses off.
Because our framework isn't a framework, our framework is just the truth, don't you know? So if you disagree, you're either stupid, evil, or most likely both.
So just even her own review undercuts the argument. Ironically, Randolph's own review contradicts her broader criticism. At one point, she admits that Bowser is actually the most compelling character in the film. By far and away, my favorite character in this movie is Bowser, she said, apparently forgetting the toxic manosphere for a moment. He's just so funny with a lot more layers and nuance.
She didn't. she didn't contradict herself. She thinks that both of those things are true. In fact, when she said that thing you just read, she was lamenting that that why is the manosphere stand-in the most the most well written and compelling character, essentially.
This is exactly like those women who say that they hate toxic men and then just keep having sex with them.
Yeah. They despise Andrew Tate and Andrew Wilson and Jordan Peterson. The sorts of men they wind up with are almost invariably those sorts of look acting clavicular types, aren't they? Hmm. Methinks the lady doth protest too much, and my gods, how they are protesting.
So which is it? Is Browser a well developed, entertaining villain or a stand in for modern social commentary? It can't be both.
Again, again, I will defend Grace in that within the context of her argument, it's not a contradiction. She was asking, why in the fuck is the most three-dimensional and compelling character this Manosphere stand-in villain that I don't like? Because
Did she never come? Did
she
she not come
was
to the
she was
realization
at
that
least partially lamenting that none of the other characters get as much depth or character arc as Bowser.
could it possibly? Did she come to the conclusion that perhaps she is actually attracted to those traits, and those traits would only fit a villain like Bowser, which is why Mario and Luigi and other characters don't behave like that?
No, I will agree with her in that most of the other characters don't get as much character arc or as much screen time. Um, and like I said, I don't particularly like the way his arc ends, which is his son basically goes friends are cringe, and he goes yup, and then the rest, the like 50% of the movie that was focused on him becoming friends with Luigi and Mario, um, basically got reset because we need some excuse to blow things up in the third act. I will agree with her in that is not a very well written aspect of this movie. It is very rushed. It is very there are 500 different things going on and we don't have time to really do much with any of them. So I will agree with her in that I don't like that Bowser spends most of the movie rehabilitating himself and then his son basically calls him cringe and he gets a factory reset.
I mean, I honestly think that Bowser is what he is. I don't think he really needed a character arc at all.
I think the reason they did it is because we'll need him to be on the Mario Brothers side at some point during the broader Nintendo Cinematic Universe. And so we've got to establish at least some instance whereby they can be friendly without necessarily compromising Bowser's villainy.
I mean, are they going to team up against Wario?
Presumably, or in the eventual Smash Brothers movie, or they're going to need an excuse to let Bowser participate in the eventual Mario Kart movie, probably.
I mean, you could just do like a speed racer type thing where they're all rivals.
You could. I don't think that's the route they're going to go with, especially because the sort of Mario verse section of the Nintendo multiverse is going to have some camaraderie together when they're in the eventual Super Smash Brothers team up, and they're fighting things from other corners of the Nintendo multiverse.
All right. It says critics versus audience round two. We're once again watching the growing divide between Hollywood critics and the audiences they claim to represent. One side is looking for fun, escapism, and nostalgia. The other is busy dissecting children's cartoons through a political lens. And history suggests we already know how this ends, with the studios losing billions of dollars and none of us being very happy.
Correct. Unfortunate, but correct. I will continue to root against Hollywood and the journalist class of critics that enable each other's worst tendencies. Because fandom is based and neo-Hegelianism ruins everything it touches. But yeah, this is
Speaking of
probably
which,
inevitable until AI gets to be until AI is a useful enough tool to basically help people with actual passion and talent replace Hollywood. This is the world in which we find ourselves. Happily, that is a likely solution to this problem, and so Hollywood will crash and burn, and it'll have a similar reset like it did in the 70s when old Hollywood died and new Hollywood showed up.
speaking of Hollywood, did you hear you hear what show Amazon is bringing back?
Oh God, what now?
Amazon is bringing back Stargate.
Given what they did to Tolkien, I really, really don't want. I don't want them stargating. I'm not
They've
even
finally
particular.
done it, Dalton. They have finally come for the last franchise I dare to love.
We still have Dresden Files, and as long as Jim Butcher draws breath, it is probably not going to be corrupted, no matter how many uh, shitwit reviewers have a go at him for sexualizing female characters.
Why couldn't they just leave it alone?
I okay. This is where I will gift Jim Butcher my gay card by proxy. He describes the male characters as sexy too. I will point out. Remember
I
Erwin
mean, Thomas is
Pounder.
literally a character.
Remember Sonia. Remember Michael. Remember Thomas.
Yeah, like
Remember
that's literally Thomas's whole thing.
like like if like it was a only the women are sexy thing, I might even be sympathetic to that argument. But Jim Butcher just likes describing superhumanly powerful and attractive characters. And very often, the women who are sexy use that sexiness as a power at their disposal, you stupid, stupid cunts. And if your argument is, and many times their argument is, a guy like Harry should not be getting women like that, one, many of the people Harry's hanging around with are ageless immortals who don't mind the old school chivalry that Harry sometimes displays, and that may in fact be part of the reason Harry is somewhat old fashioned, because he hangs out with a lot of ageless immortals who aren't
I
up
mean,
on all the Tumblrisms.
I
Um,
mean, Harry is
but
tall, heroic, and powerful. Like, and they wonder
yeah,
why women are.
there's also the fact that he's a NBA-sized gumshoe with oodles of battle scars and a hero complex the size of a fucking planet, and the ability to lay waste to entire empires should he feel like it. I'm not saying all women will necessarily be attracted to that kind of man, but let's be real here, especially when you're talking about the ageless immortals who are more old-fashioned in their sensibilities. NBA-sized warrior gumshoe with battle scars and a hero complex is an easy sell for a lot of people. Especially because Harry also has this adorable kind of incompetence about him that also kind of somewhat makes him endearing. So even the people who aren't really swayed by machismo wind up being at least a little bit swayed by, oh, isn't he adorable and hilarious sometimes.
But let's get back to the. Let's finish up this article about the Super Mario movie.
Yeah.
See, if the Super Mario Galaxy movie follows the same trajectory as its predecessors, it won't matter what critics say. Audiences will show up anyway because they're not looking for a lecture, they're looking for Mario, which is entirely true. I mean, this movie was made for fans of Mario.
Yeah, like dear Hollywood, two adages that I would very much like you to relearn for your own good as well as mine. One, the customer is always right in matters of taste. But what if they're toxic? What if they're no? The customer is always right in matters of artistic taste. And two, please, for the love of all that is holy, stop biting the hand that feeds you, much less biting the hand that feeds you and then cauterizing the fucking wound.
Calling Bowser a symbol of the toxic manosphere isn't just a stretch, it's emblematic of a broader problem in entertainment media. When everything becomes a vehicle for modern commentary, even the most straightforward stories lose their simplicity.
Yeah. I mean, there are other problems with that, but that is certainly a aspect of the problem. Yes.
Not only that, but the commentary about modern society is always from it's always a message that the people largely disagree with.
Yeah. And it's always a two-dimensional oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, with all the nuance and subtlety of a dick to the face. Um, I I know I bring this up a lot, but it's because it is the perfect counterexample to shit like this. Anyone remember Justice League Unlimited? Specifically the Cadmus story arc of Justice League Unlimited?
I have not
There you,
seen that show in so long. Could you please remind me?
there you had characters all throughout the Justice League from different philosophical worldviews and different philosophical frameworks having nuanced and three-dimensional discussions about whether or not the government should have a position on superheroes or whether or not there should be countermeasures in the case of superheroes going rogue. And this is the most stark example of how you can have, or you used to be able to have, three-dimensional thought experiments where one side was not unequivocally right and the other side was not unequivocally a demon. You had the question, who is, was, and always has been a exemplar for Randian objectivism on one side, and then you had Green Arrow, who is, to use his own words in that episode, an old school lefty who believes the government must do for people what they can't do for themselves or shouldn't be expected to do for themselves. And not only were they able to have this argument on a kids show in the 90s, mind you, 90s and early 2000s, they were able to be teammates and friends not only after and before this, but during it. Where
I
is
mean,
where is that kind? And again, the way I differentiate it is it's the difference between philosophy and politics. What we have now is politics in absence of philosophy. What we used to have were the capacity for three-dimensional philosophical thought experiments because there wasn't one singular settled position. And even the truly awful, mustache twirling villains had valid reasons for thinking and doing the evil shit they did a lot of the time. Hence the Magneto versus Xavier thing. But kid shows in the 90s kid shows in the 90s and early 2000s are writing circles around alleged serious dramas in today's day and age, much less the opinions of journalists, critics, and academics in today's day and age.
yeah, because they're being written by people with the intellectual capacity of a tapeworm, and all the societal useness of one too.
Yeah, at least the tapeworm tends not to kill its host.
Oh, it tries not to.
Yeah, whereas these people are actively striving to kill the host as quickly as possible because the host is immoral, don't you know?
let's see, whatever thing we're at that part. And in the case of Mario, that simplicity is exactly the point. Sometimes a villain is just a villain. Yes, like I mentioned in the case of Ganondorf, his entire existence is literally meant to be the embodiment of evil. That is, that is his entire reason for existing in canon.
Yeah. Also, what is Mario if not? And this is probably one of the reasons why it was one of the earliest and most all-pervasive um, stories of the nascence of video gaming, and to the point that people like Anita Sarkeesian had to attack Mario. What is Mario if not Knight goes off on a quest to save Princess from Dragon? If
I,
there is a better analogy for the modern version of Noble Knight goes on quest to save Princess from Dragon, um, I can't think of one. It literally could not be more explicit in the case of Mario.
I mean, it literally says in the first Mario game, whenever he goes into the castle at the end of the level, the princess is in another castle. The princess is in another castle.
Yeah, that's the whole reason there are levels in the Mario games, because Bowser is a clever dragon who basically plays three card Monty with a series of castles. But if you got rid of the princess in another castle thing, it would be quite explicitly hero goes on quest to save princess from dragon. I mean, he's a he's a reptilian lizard turtle thing that breathes fire. Could we get more explicitly Knight v Dragon if we tried? And hell, there are some versions of Mario when he gets power ups that basically do function like armor. So, again, could it be more obvious that this is very obviously hero saves princess from dragon? God damn it!
Could you keep talking for a minute? I have to go check on something.
Okay, um, but yeah, this I don't even necessarily blame Grace, because, like I said, when she's not trapped in her upper middle class New York bubble, um, and not basically outsourcing all her thinking to journalists and academics, she does at least have some redeemable qualities. Um, but yeah, I blame the aforementioned like bubble of journalists and academics who think that not only is this a fundamentally valid position of theirs, but it is the only valid position. And if you don't view art in this like instrumental weaponizing sort of terms, where it's socio-political morality above everything else, including anything resembling in-universe considerations, then you're media illiterate. It's it's utterly facile. It's I imagine this is what it was like um trying to convince the medieval like clergy based academia to come to terms with the like revolutions of the Renaissance. It really is getting to that level of like dilapidated, um, ossified, geriatric scholarly structure that is so hyperfixated on its officialdom that it's not interested in intellectual inquiry or honest analysis. Like we are officially there with the arts in academia. That
Yeah, and everybody can kind of get that sense because uh, it's not simply a matter of people not being familiar with these things. I mean, we're living in an age where anyone can be a film buff and see all the great works and have their own analysis. And usually, when they're talking about a lot of the truly great films, a lot of people will generally agree on the themes and the character arcs and the greatness of the dialogue. But in these modern times, it's really a matter of It's not even about whether or not it's good, it's about whether or not it reinforces the political bias of the critic.
Well, I mean, to your point, some of the earliest celebrities on the internet, some of the earliest YouTubers who were able to quit their day jobs and become YouTubers full time were the angry video game nerd, aka James Rolfe, and Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, and the like heyday of what I used to refer to, and I still sometimes refer to, as the reviewer sphere, exemplified mostly by stuff like Channel Awesome, um, was from like Nostalgia Critic, or Angry Video Game Nerd got his start in, I want to say, 2005. Nostalgia Critic got his start in like 2007, and the like peak heyday of the reviewer sphere, as exemplified by Channel Awesome, was from like 2010 to 2015, and that's more than 10 years ago now. So it's kind of baffling that we still act as though only the prestigious like critics that get jobs with mainstream journalistic publications and have academic credentials from fucking film school are capable of holding meaningful opinions on political events and shit. It's kind of like how, as much as I approve of the like new media seat in the White House press room, if we went by things like influence, their ability to exemplify the average person's perspective, or their ability to have meaningful discourse on these issues, it would honestly be flipped. It would be like one seat for the mainstream media for every 10 seats for an independent commentator. Because I
I'd
don't
be
even.
fine with like half and half, honestly.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, if your goal as the press was to ask the questions the people on the ground want you to ask, and to reflect their opinions on the matter or provide meaningful analysis on the matter, it would at this point be you'd get one seat for CNN, one seat for MSNBC, one seat for Fox News, and then the rest of the seats would be taken up by people like Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, even people like Hassan and Destiny and Vosh. Because, like, as much as I find those people to be objectionable, they do actually reflect the feelings on the ground of a significant portion of the people and are meaningful reflectors of the opinions thereof. So, like, Hassan Piker may be an insufferable dickhead, but he has a more valid reason for being there than Don Lemon, for example.
I despise them both.
Yeah, but if we're going based on relevance and their ability to have their fingers on the pulse of their audience base, Hassan is better than Don Lemon.
Yes.
And Don Lemon, if you ever see this, think about that for a second. You are worse at your job than Hassan motherfucking Piker. You should be ashamed.
Well, he might be going to prison. Like, I, I, I really hope he goes to prison.
We can but hope. And and the higher the Nexanor brand Hassan Piker fuctometer goes, the more likely it is that Hassan will shortly join him there. I really hope that when Hassan goes down, Nux switches to Vosh. We need a Vosh is X% fuctometer, and then Destiny, and then as much as it pains me, because I once did have at least some respect for this person, Kyle Kalinske at some point. He's not.
Yeah,
He's not near the top of the list. We need to go through Vosh and Destiny first, and
I would argue that
we need to
Krasinski
finish
deserves it more
Hassan's
than
punishment
Kalinske.
arc, but Kyle Kalinske eventually.
I would argue that Krasenstein deserves it more than Kalinske.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But to talk about Bowser again for a second here, she's asking like about why these traits are applied to this character, but really the character didn't need any of these traits to begin with. I mean, if you're trying to make it into a compelling character for a film, sure, but I mean, the essence of the character is just essentially dragon kidnaps princess. I mean, because he doesn't even have any lines in the original Mario games. Like that's literally his entire purpose is just to be the monster that kidnaps Princess Peach.
To be fair, um, ever since they did start giving him more writing, they have established that he wants to take over the Mushroom Kingdom, and he kidnapped Peach in part to make his demands, more pressing on the Mushroom Kingdom. So that part is fine, which is exactly why Gray shouldn't have immediately gone, "Oh, that's toxic patriarchal colonialist entitlement that reminds me of the Manosphere." But insofar as we're sticking to what I think was actually intended versus what Grace got out of it, um, it does make sense that his motivation would be, as it's been in the games for a while now, I want to rule the Mushroom Kingdom or the world or the galaxy that I'm in, and blah, 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 blah. That makes sense. And it further makes sense that he would teach his children that those are good things to aspire to, because that's what he's been doing in the games, basically, since the Koopalings were introduced.
Honestly, if they were going to look for a villain with more depth, Ganondorf would be a far more better villain to look to. I
And
mean,
we will get there when they make the Zelda thing, because they are making the Zelda thing, but they want the Zelda thing in live action. And honestly, I'm in favor of that, because Zelda is much more high fantasy and a lot less cartoony. I know Mario has the potential to not necessarily be cartoony either, but if a portion of the Nintendo verse has to be live action, you could do worse than um you could do worse than Zelda.
I disagree personally because Link is a character that is known for not speaking, and I feel like you could do a better chance of getting away with having a character that does not speak in an animation rather than a live action.
True, but even then, I'd prefer if the Legend of Zelda animation was more akin to the Netflix Castlevania anime. Which, speaking of things that should be adapted, but honestly, I don't think they'd be able to do it better than Warren Ellis did it. So,
To
as
be
much as I would love to see Trevor Belmont in the Super Smash Brothers crossover, you're never going to be able to do a version of Castlevania that's better than the Warren Ellis version. I'm sorry, it just can't.
I
Like,
think you could because he took a lot of the Christian elements out of it, really, other than to make them the villains. And two, um, like he's also the guy who adapted Devil May Cry, who turned Lady, a character whose motivation in Devil May Cry 3 was getting revenge for her dad, into some sort of like demon military police agent, and also essentially made the demons an allegory for uh, Muslims in the Middle East
was
and
that
civil.
was that Warren Ellis though? I thought that was after he got Me Too'd, because the reason they had to rush Castlevania season 4 was because he got Me Too'd and they wanted him to get out the door as soon as possible. I don't think that was
I
him.
believe it. I believe it is. It might not be. I will go check.
Yeah, because I could have sworn they gave him Das Boot after the Me Tooing happened.
No, I think it's a different person. That's my bad. That's my
Okay,
bad.
I was gonna say because I didn't necessarily mind what he did with Castlevania because he was really making pot shots at the historical era of the church that it was in during the late medieval period, and even modern day Catholics, I'm sure, can admit that the Inquisition era Catholic Church may have done fucked up somewhere there.
True, but there was one scene in season, I believe 4, where he says that it's not the symbol of the cross that affects vampire; it's more of the angles of the.
Right, the predator vision. I I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that. I mean, I think it would have been better if they had done basically what Dresden Files did, which is it can be any symbol so long as there's genuine faith behind it. But I didn't. That's not a. I didn't. That wasn't out of spite, and that's my threshold for I'm willing to hear you out up until the point at which you're actively spiting the IP and the audience that likes it. And I don't feel like that was out of spite. I feel like he had an interesting idea for a unique take on that particular vampire weakness and he ran with it.
You know, I personally didn't like it. I feel like if they were going to run for that angle, they could have done it with the night creatures instead of the full on vampires because because it's shown that like Christian faith does have an effect because the monsters were like burning in holy water
Yeah.
whenever they did that thing with the undead.
And and again, even if you wanted more nuance there, there's the Dresden Files solution with it, which it's any sincere and righteous variety of faith that counts. Because hell, wasn't it Scythe's magic that rendered it into holy water? If I'm remembering
Yeah,
season one correctly.
no, this was
So
in season 2 with
right, they
it was
they
that
brought
was
back the bishop, and then he made the water so holy that it burned his now necromantic corpse, which was hilarious.
that didn't make sense to me because he was undead. Like it should like the soul is a connection to God. Like if he's undead and therefore has no soul, it shouldn't be able to
Well,
bless.
but that's not how the Forge Masters have ever worked. They bring the souls back and then reshape the bodies they're in. That's how the Forge Masters work. But even then, I think what we're supposed to conclude there is that the ritual itself has the power to some degree.
I know,
Um,
but it like we were talking about Zelda. I I really hope the Link doesn't talk because I believe Nintendo does a good job of allowing player to basically map on their thoughts and feelings on the Link, and Link does a good job of expressing what the character is thinking through simple expression.
yeah, you're gonna need to find an actor who can really do a lot of like expressiveness with just their expression.
Yeah, but
You,
unfortunately, I don't think they're gonna go the not talking route, which is unfortunate.
I mean, they could very easily do a reference to the old, Mario Super Show that had all the components to it. I don't know as I would like that because at that point you should make it animated in the same way Mario is because that show was very, very campy. The famous "Excuse me, princess" meme comes from that show, and if that's the way they're gonna do Link, then yeah, just make it animated. Either do a serious, almost Lord of the Rings esque take on Zelda, which is what I would prefer, which will necessitate Link being the stoic, silent protagonist, um, or if you're gonna do the "excuse me, princess" old show reference, make it animated.
One thing that I'm not sure if I'm excited about is if they're going to make Zelda more of a companion to Link on his journey, which she really never has been.
Mm.
Like, I think it would be completely fine if Zelda was essentially trapped, like kind of what they did in Breath of the Wild, where Zelda is trapped in the castle with Ganon, using her
Mm.
power to basically hold him back as much as possible until
Yeah,
Link is there to finish the job. It grants Zelda the agency that all the one
ba-
established you to be looking for, while also making sure that no, this is Link's journey.
basically make her actual Galadriel. Like that's the mold that Zelda should be in. Not Rings of Power Galadriel, mind you, actual Kate Blanchett Galadriel.
Yeah,
Like the power of femininity and the power of purity and the power of wisdom and so on. I think
yeah,
isn't the
and
Triforce
it's
of I'm
and
trying to remember which Triforces go where. It's Ganon has the
it
Triforce of power because he's symbolic of Machiavellian manipulation and shit. Link
Zelda has
has
Triforce of Wisdom. Link has courage,
yeah.
which
So
is shown. It does not give him any more power. It simply bolsters his courage to face any evil.
yeah, again, to make a Lord of the Rings reference, it's like the three Elven rings. They don't really do as much in the like magical power department as you would think. Their main purposes are more sort of operating on the soul, the mind, and the heart of people and so on. Um,
Yeah, and so I would like it if Zelda did the Breath of the Wild thing where she held off Ganon for like 100 years, because that is a genuine move of self-sacrifice and why Zelda is a worthy princess, because she made such a massive sacrifice for her nation and her people, and it
yeah,
also shows just how strong she is to hold this off for 100 years.
and if you and it also shows why the Triforce of Wisdom is a power unto itself. Which again, if you want to know how to do this properly, basically do what um Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, did with Galadriel. And for the holding Ganon back thing, basically do what they did with Galadriel in The Hobbit when she was confronting Sauron in Dol Guldur, or Mirkwood rather.
Yeah, I mean, I like her characterization even more in Tears of the Kingdom, where she gets sent back in time and meets ancient Ganondorf, and they fight, and Ganondorf can't be beaten in that time, but instead he gets sealed away
Mm,
uh, to eventually face Link in the current time. And in order to fix the broken Master Sword and imbue with more power, she swallows something called a secret stone, which turns her into a dragon with the Master Sword embedded in the dragon's skull, and pouring her power of light into the Master Sword for like 1,000 years. But
mm,
it's a really great scene whenever she does this, because like you see her swallow the stone, and then you could feel like the, the power starting to turn her into a dragon. And her last words before she becomes a dragon is "Link, protect them all," and then like bursts in the light, and a dragon comes forth, which
mhm.
is a really great characterization scene for the character. Just
Very,
how far
very
she.
potent self-sacrificey sorts of themes. And again, think in terms of Galadriel when she refuses the ring when Frodo offers it to her there. Like, if
Yeah,
you want to make your character both exceedingly feminine and have her power be rooted in that femininity and also have her be a badass, OG Galadriel is basically the masterclass of how you do that.
yeah, yeah. It's a great characterization to show how much she's willing to sacrifice for her people, and also how much she's willing to support Link. And she does eventually get at the end of the game. She becomes human again, but she had no way of knowing that would ever happen. Like to her, this was just
Right. This was this was I will do what is required of me because noblesse oblige and goodness and light and purity and giving Link his best chance at doing what we couldn't do.
yeah. So I would like the Zelda movie to be good. I hope they can pull it off.
And please, for the love of fuck, assuming they're going ahead with the live action plan, don't do what they did with the D&D movie. I know many people use D&D in very comedic ways, but would it kill you to make a serious high fantasy D&D type thing? And if you're going to do that, a very good choice would be to do it with Legend of Zelda, because apart from D&D and apart from, obviously Tolkien, Legend of Zelda is a lot of people's first exposure to serious high fantasy lore, and I really don't want to see it get airsats Guardians of the Galaxy like that one, like D&D on Honor Among Thieves did. I
After
like
watching
I
it
like
was
comedic
honestly not.
D&D campaigns as much as the next guy, but one, no scripted D&D movie will ever be as funny as an earnest D&D session among you and your friends. And two, I desperately want them to do something D&D-esque, but as a serious high fantasy for 5 minutes.
After
And I'm not saying it has
rewatching
to be
Honor
entirely
Among Thieves,
devoid of comedy either. You can have your like Legend of Vox Machina style humor here and there, but like take the grandiose high fantasy shit seriously, please.
I started liking Vox Machina less and less. In the first season, I really liked it, but as it went on, it became more and more crude and just
They
you don't
leaned
need the
into the
extremes
memes
to
too
get
much. Again,
it.
it's the Guardians of the Galaxyification of D&D, and I liked Guardians of the Galaxy considerably more, I think, even than the next person. But not everything needs to be Guardians of the Galaxy, and D&D really shouldn't be Guardians of the Galaxy, especially because again, you will never successfully be as fun or as funny in a scripted movie or a scripted show as you will when it's people making shit up on the fly among their friends.
Yeah. All right, so it's been an hour. Do you have any final thoughts?
Uh I mean, this is just the latest hit piece in a long series of hit pieces, folks. And they will hit us again because men's rights is the devil, don't you know?
Yeah, and it's I would very much like us to get to a point where we don't have to try and super glue on, you know, like political frameworks and, you know, treaties on society to every piece of fiction that comes out. But unfortunately, I think these people are going to try and hold on as long as possible.
Yeah, academia is going to crumble before they will let go of the Frankfurt School style artistic interpretation, instrumentalization, weaponization of art. And it will be a very long time, even after that, before they're willing to finally realize that media literacy is the self refuting term that it is, and that the toxic fans actually have a fucking point, you cunts.
All right. I've been Mystery.
I have been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys. Your
Goodbye, everybody.
princess may be in another castle. Lol.